If there is one company that needs a win as far as trying to break into the gaming market goes, it's Amazon. They have experienced failure after failure in large part because management and leadership has no idea what they're doing. This Bloomberg article, for example, exposed how one of the heads of Amazon's gaming endeavors, Mike Frazzini, had never made a video game when he helped start Amazon Game Studios. And a large part of why a lot of these games failed was because leadership is treating game development studios like tech companies, and what you need to do is treat them as creative endeavors, allow for flexibility and openness in ideas being able to flow freely instead of the more regimented ways that tech companies tend to run. And another part of it had to do with the fact that Amazon kept trying to chase trends instead of establishing new ones and pursuing truly creative and unique endeavors. So League of Legends inspired Nova, which was canceled in 2017, Fortnite inspired Intensity, which was canceled in 2019, and then Overwatch inspired Crucible. We know all about that one. That's a game that was a hero shooter, MOBA, battle royale hybrid that failed so badly that after release it went back to beta and then it died in beta. Amazon did manage to release a video game adaptation of the show The Grand Tour, but that flopped both critically and commercially. The Lord of the Rings MMO that was announced back in 2019, that didn't end well either. As reported on April 17th, 2021, Amazon canceled the Lord of the Rings game announced 2 years ago. So just about every single game development endeavor that Amazon has pursued has ended in failure, with their only hope now being this MMO called New World. It's the only game that we know of from Amazon right now that shows some potential, and it is slated to be released sort of in the not-so-distant future. It was delayed recently because they wanted to refine things after the way Crucible crashed and burned. But now even New World is facing some negative PR after recent announcements regarding some of their monetization schemes that they have in mind for the future of this MMO, as announced right here on May 14th, 2021, 2 days ago, via this tweet that features an image with a statement about the in-game storefront. So let's go through this, and I'd like to share my opinions along the way. Some questions have come up recently from our alpha patch notes discussing an in-game storefront. Our plan in having a store is to create an outlet for players who find enough value in store items that they're happy to purchase them. Our plan is not and never will be to create a feeling that store items are necessary to enjoy the game. The whole "it's optional" thing. All players will be able to play the full game experience we ship without having to make store purchases. All store items at launch will be exclusively cosmetic in nature. Now, at launch is the key term here. We are introducing the storefront and alpha in order to test these items and their value. No selections in the store or their indicated costs during testing. There is no real cost in any case. Is final. Our purpose is quality assurance and gathering player feedback, so please share your thoughts once the system is introduced. The testing audience will see each type of item we are considering and have an opportunity to provide feedback before they're introduced to the live game. Now, if the statement ended here, perhaps we wouldn't see such a backlash. From what I understand, New World isn't going to be a subscription-based MMO. Instead, it's going to charge $40 for the base package and then charge additional money for future expansions. And this being an MMO, microtransactions are more tolerable, but there are still certain lines that you don't cross. If the statement had ended here and them saying, you know, we're going to take your feedback and make sure that we use that feedback to refine things, if that's where it stopped, maybe this story wouldn't have blown up as it did. But then the New World development team's statement, or Rich Lawrence's statement, who is the studio director, continued. Looking towards the future, we will also test ideas on how to offer players quality of life items, is the way this is labeled, for mechanics like rested XP and fast travel. So there are considerations right now for XP boost, microtransactions, and fast travel being an element of microtransactions as well, both obtainable in-game and purchasable in-store. So at this point, we are delving into pay-to-win territory. If you can pay for XP boost, then obviously the players who spend more are going to have an edge in the rate of progression. And fast travel, well, that's just a feature that will allow you to move around the world faster, and relegating that to microtransactions and allowing people to pay their way to having as many fast travels as they need will give those players an advantage because they can move around the world faster, complete quests faster, partake in activities faster. This is very much reaching pay-to-win territory. The statement then says the timing of release for these types of items will depend on how players progress in the months after launch. The more players who are able to experience all of our exciting endgame content and game modes, the healthier the overall game experience will be for all players. Not necessarily with MMOs, you've got all kinds of players. You've got hardcore players who really go hard on endgame content and endgame rewards, and there are those who just kind of play these more casually and maybe aren't gonna reach the highest of levels or obtain the most lucrative of items, but are kind of there for the ride, and having a healthy mix of both is okay. Our goal with all items of any type is that they not offer an advantage that imbalances the game. Well, guess what? The second you said that you're going to implement XP boost microtransactions and fast travel microtransactions, you have thrown that commitment out the window by even considering this kind of pay-to-win monetization scheme. We understand that this line is based on player interpretation, so we ask for your patience while we test an alpha and listen to your feedback. There's already plenty of feedback being provided, and if you're really listening, then you will simply not do this. That's what it comes down to. For transparency on future plans, we're also contemplating but have not finalized a Battle Pass style program. So on top of the pay-to-win microtransactions, you're announcing additional forms of monetization. Great. That would combine store items on a periodic basis. This will also be tested ahead of time to ensure it provides strong value without disrupting gameplay for those not participating. Much further along, there is also the possibility of optional expansions, which would have a separate cost. Whether the Battle Pass aspect would be acceptable would depend on the business model and things like the price of Battle Passes and the rewards that they dole out. So this game already has multiple forms of monetization. You've got the base price of $40, you've got the money you're going to have to pay for future expansions, you've got this consideration for a Battle Pass style program, and you've got cosmetic microtransactions. And we don't even know how the Battle Pass aspect would be handled, whether it's tolerable or not, whether it's fair with its price points and the kinds of rewards it doles out and the progression of it all. But it's not as if New World, even without the pay-to-win aspects, would be strapped for monetization schemes for recurrent monetization of players. So for them to add a pay-to-win aspect on top of that, it is certainly not sitting well with players who have kind of tested this MMO and are hoping that Amazon will get this right. And the responses to this Twitter post speak for themselves. And right down here, you can already see the ratio of comments versus likes. When there's almost as many comments as there are likes, there's clearly something going on. And Amazon has also been responding to feedback from players, and those are being ratioed as well. So here we have one Twitter user who spotlighted one of the quotes from that statement expressing their concern and their distrust of how Amazon's going to handle this. The more players who are able to experience all of our exciting endgame content and game modes, the healthier it is for all players. That sounds to me that you want to rush people to endgame with boosts and other stuff. Sounds really bad to me. Just let people enjoy the journey. New World's response was that, well, it isn't about rushing people to the endgame. It is about supporting people who don't have as much time to play and helping them reach the endgame with the time available to them, which is translation for, we're going to make sure that the experience is grindy so that people who aren't able to dedicate all the time in the world to this game will feel like they have to buy these microtransactions so that they can keep up, so that the experience can be enjoyable, so that they're progressing at a more enjoyable rate, and so that the experience of playing this game can be tolerable for them, is what it comes down to. That's kind of how these kinds of microtransactions, these time savers, tend to work. And plenty of people agree with me on that front. Here we have Twitter user Domes with a post with 824 likes compared to New World's measly 176. If you see your content as skippable or not relevant, that buying a boost is a good way to get into real content, then you have failed to create an interesting content progression. Make leveling faster if you care about people wasting their time, or if endgame is all you care. New World responded with MMOs take a tremendous time investment that not everyone has available. Boosts can be a way for people who don't have time to get more out of the time they can play and support the game and community in another way. And here's an appropriate response from Twitter user Jheezy, who retranslated this to be a bit more accurate. We have specifically designed certain aspects of our games to be an absolute waste of time and completely unmemorable, like leveling and crafting, so we're doing you guys the favor of giving you a credit card slot to completely skip these deliberate wastes of time. Just imagine hypothetically if a movie purposely decided to make a 2-hour movie into a 4-hour movie by adding in between the core moments random filler scenes like characters taking 30 minutes to just eat some food or something. And when those moments arrive, a prompt appears saying, hey, if you want to skip this part, you clearly don't have the time to watch a 4-hour movie, so if you want to skip this segment, let us save you some time. Here's the credit card slot for you to be able to pay this amount of money to be able to skip that part and get to the good stuff. Imagine how that would be received. That's what this feels is the equivalent to. Games that sell you time savers tend to purposely implement time wasters so that you have to pay to not waste time. They purposely introduce that problem so you have to buy the solution. They give you a net negative so that you buy the thing that'll get you back to zero, back to baseline. And even if we assume the best case scenario that New World's content will be compelling from beginning to end, the game would be doing a disservice by offering a way for players to just spend money to skip some of that stuff, to skip that journey. No matter which way you look at it, giving players a way to save time in these games by skipping stuff just straight up isn't a good look. Another Twitter user chimed in saying, so let's give the people who devote a lot of time into your game the middle finger. New World responded with, no, those folks will be able to attain those boosts in-game. We included that in the statement. You're not understanding what the Twitter user is saying. People who don't pay for this stuff will end up grinding, will end up wasting a lot more time than the people who just buy the stuff outright and immediately gain access to these advantages. The same Twitter user Rannick then said, why even have boosters to start with then? I don't think the casual Joe is expecting to be able to compete with the players who spend more time than he does. Why even have this system in the first place? New World's response was, the focus isn't competition, it is about being able to experience more of the game while not having as much time. One Twitter user expressed pay-to-win concerns, so a casual Joe who is willing to pay for a boost should have an edge over the other casual Joe who won't pay for a boost. If one of them is reaching faster to the end game with the same amount of time invested, different should be efficiency, not an in-game shop boost. And this is what the other Twitter user meant when he said that you're kind of giving the middle finger to people who put time into this game to achieve the most lucrative of goals. You're allowing people to fast-track their way to the final destination, if you will, and that just removes any semblance of that sense of achievement. It is very important for an MMO to maintain an even playing field and make it so that the best rewards, the most lucrative rewards, the most desired rewards are ones that can only be obtained by putting in the time and effort. And that's what makes accomplishing those long-term high-end goals that much more satisfying. It's about that knowledge that you accomplish this through your own merits, that you are among few who managed to get there, and that everyone else also got there because they put the work in and not because they took some shortcut. But the second you add a monetization shortcut, it kind of ruins that illusion. Not to mention that this whole narrative of we're just being nice by giving players a way to pay for those who don't have as much time to invest in this game, there are workarounds to that. One user, for example, tweeted, "So what if my friends are at a level cap and I'm not? They will help me. If I had no friends, I would ask in chat or ask in online communities. It's 2021. We have so much possibilities to get help in a game. Selling boosts is just an excuse to make money." Indeed, New World acts as if having players pay for accelerators and boosters is the only way to get players who don't have as much time caught up. But there are plenty of ways to implement gameplay systems that will encourage players to help each other, that will grant XP boosts and rewards players for cooperating with each other so that they can lift each other up. There are so many solutions that don't have to involve pay-to-win monetization, but I guess that's just something New World failed to consider. And the advantage of that cooperative style of gameplay is that you can both see the breadth of content that a game has to offer while also having an accelerated rate of progress because your friend is helping you defeat tougher enemies that will grant you more XP. But of course, the executives don't want to consider that. The people who are intending to monetize the hell out of this game aren't considering that, because at the end of the day, it isn't about doing us a favor. It is just about making money. It is about increasing profit margin, and New World's bullshit excuses, it isn't something anyone's buying. They act as if the intention with a statement like this and all of these additional responses is to be transparent, when in reality, they are masquerading their true intentions through PR statements whose logic are deeply flawed or contradict themselves, to masquerade the intention to nickel and dime players at the expense of game balance and the overall gameplay experience, at the expense of those who wouldn't or don't want to spend money on microtransactions or simply can't afford to and would have to progress through the game in the traditional way and without any shortcuts. They keep saying, "Give us your feedback and we'll listen," but people are already giving their feedback, and it looks like New World just isn't listening and instead providing excuses. They're being very selective about the feedback that they listen to because they're trying their damnedest to make sure that removing this pay-to-win microtransactions isn't an option, making excuses that people are not buying or just straight up make no sense. But yeah, as far as community response goes, you get the idea. It is near universally dissent against this decision. And right now, Amazon is in a place where their reputation in the gaming market is sort of at rock bottom. People just don't trust that they're able to carry through with a project, and New World is kind of the only game thus far that has some potential to see a potentially successful release, and now that's being squandered with all of the negative PR being created here with their implementation of a monetization model that does cross a line. Gameplay advantages that you can pay for should just not be a thing in an MMO environment, in a massively multiplayer environment where one of the key pillars is that everyone feels like the game is fair towards everyone and not favoring certain types of people, like people who are willing to pay hundreds, thousands of dollars worth of microtransactions. Given Amazon's woes with game development, this is one hill they absolutely do not want to die on, so I really hope that they'll reverse, at the very least, the pay-to-win aspect, and with the other monetization schemes, I certainly hope they'll find a good middle ground between being cost-effective, but also allowing for fair ways to obtain those items through gameplay, and so long as the microtransactions don't affect gameplay and balance, then that stuff people might overlook, especially given that this is an MMO that's meant to last for a long time. But things like XP boost and buying fast travel should just be something you can do. That should not be sold in any way, shape, or form. People shouldn't have to grind for that in any way, shape, or form. That stuff is simply not acceptable. And if New World aims to have a strong start with positive word of mouth, they have to get rid of this crap, unless Amazon intends to risk yet another failure with their game releases. But that's just one man's take on the situation. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the statement that New World studio director made here in regards to monetization plans. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.